Welcome to InkThinks. So I've been going through a lot of different prediction lists for Smash Bros. Ultimate DLC, and I see a lot of the same contenders popping up. Sora, Crash, even Scorpion, but something's bothered me about most of these lists. All of the characters that they're suggesting are third party, and lots of people say it has to be this way because Reggie said, these are going to be characters that are new to the series, just like Joker from Persona 5. Characters that you would not anticipate to be in Smash Bros. Ultimate. And a lot of people interpret this to mean only third-party characters and no first-party representation. And other people narrow that down even further to, you can't have a fighter who was ever in Smash Bros. In any way, shape, or form. Spirit, assist trophy, nothing. So, I don't know, I personally think that Reggie was just trying to find a fluffier way of telling us that these characters are going to be unique, and I'm not entirely convinced that a Spirit even deconfirms, but I digress. Naturally, because of this quote, most of the conversation for a DLC fighter has been around third-party characters, but honestly, that would make me super bummed out. Third-party fighters are cool and all, but that's not what Smash Bros. Is about. I've said it before on this channel, but Smash is a celebration of some of the greatest Nintendo characters throughout history. So I reject your reality and substitute my own. But you know what? Do you want to play it by the rules that Reggie set? Fine, let's do it. I'm going to present to you 5 original Nintendo fighters who could be DLC, who've never been in the game in any way, shape, or form, and oh boy, there were not many to choose from. And I am totally not scraping the bottom of the bucket on this one. We're in for a wild ride. Let's go. Let's start off with an easy one. It honestly kind of blew my mind that this character was so prominent, but has never been featured in any Smash game. To get this character, we've got to travel back to the days of the NES. It was the 1980s, and Nintendo got it in their head that the people of Japan didn't actually want a video game, but they wanted a toy instead. And that led to the development of the NES accessory, Rob, or the Robotic Operating Buddy. Rob was a real-life accessory that was controlled by a character in the games Gyromite and Stack Up. While Rob has gone on to fame in multiple appearances in multiple Nintendo games, the character who was actually in those games is often forgotten, Professor Hector. Professor Hector is the creator of Rob and always keeps it classy with his signature lab coat. Most importantly, his number of appearances in Smash Bros. Is exactly 0. And as far as fighting style goes, I think it would be really fun to have a scientist-type character in the game. And Smash has a history of making characters without a fighting history work well in the game. Picture him throwing beakers of acid or stacking up blocks only to send them out spinning. I unironically think that Professor Hector could really work here. I think if we want to draw attention to an underrepresented series in Smash, I think it would be an interesting approach to have the villain be the representative. That's why for this next spot, I nominate Escargoon from Kirby Right Back At Ya. Think about it just makes so much sense. Just kidding. My real nomination is Dr. Coil from ARMS. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I haven't played ARMS for more than a few minutes, but I will say that the gameplay is super fun and memorable. I honestly was kind of disappointed when Springman and Ribbon Girl didn't get into the game, but I think there's still a chance for an ARMS rep to get into the game in the form of Dr. Coil. Now, I know a lot of people think of ARMS as this has-been series that isn't super relevant anymore, but this character is honestly pretty cool. She's the director of ARMS Laboratories, she's a super genius, she has a drive to be the very best that she can, but most importantly, she has those signature stretchable arms that would just be so interesting to play with in Smash. I'm all in favor of her making the roster. Alright, so I wanted to sandwich this one right in the middle of the list because I love this idea, however, I'm a little unclear about the ownership of the character. That said, I think it's close enough to Nintendo that I'll include it. I've said for a while that my most wanted character is some sort of Zelda representation. I've wanted Impa for a while, but I'm just as excited for this pick. Volga from Hyrule Warriors. Now, I know Hyrule Warriors isn't a Nintendo-produced game, but all of the Zelda characters are in the game, and it's so closely connected that I'm gonna add it to the list. When I was making this list, I was trying to decide between Lana or Volga, and here's my rationale. Lana's iconic to the game, she's a huge part of the story, and she has interesting magic spells that could be ported into the game to make her unlike any other character. All in all, I think she would make a lot of sense to put into the game. But I decided to go with Volga because when you really think about it from a critical and analytical mindset, Volga is really cool, and I like him. And sure, he's not like the main character of Hyrule Warriors, and you can't play as him without buying the DLC, but you're forgetting he's really, really cool, and I like him a lot. And when you think about it, Volga would be really unique. He'd have a long-range weapon, he can breathe fire, and he can turn into a dragon, and so that's not like anything we have in the game. I think he would be an awesome, very cool addition to the roster. Alright, so for this next one, if we're being realistic, I'd say this spot would probably go to Byleth from the upcoming Fire Emblem game, just because there's been representation from every modern Fire Emblem game so far. Given that fact, I think that we really ought to give some consideration to the fact that Fire Emblem 3 Houses will have a good chance of making some sort of appearance in Smash. However, Byleth makes sense, but I feel like Nintendo should go a different route for a couple reasons. First off, we've had enough of the main characters, but more importantly, we've had enough sword characters from Fire Emblem. We could really use some diversity. My vote, Claude the Archer. I've said it before and I'll say it again, Fire Emblem representation is not a bad thing at all, as long as the characters are diverse and unique. We haven't really had anything from Fire Emblem besides a sword character, and we could do an entire video on this topic, but in short, I think a dedicated archer would be super cool. I picture him playing something like Green Arrow from Injustice, zoning from a distance with some various types of arrows, and then going in for some quick strikes and kicks when the bow is close range. If not a new archer, it would be cool to see some sort of mage or something. Honestly, I'm just bummed that Fire Emblem doesn't have better representation in Smash, and I want to find some way to expand that selection without doing more and more sword characters. Before I get to my number one slot, I just want to ask you guys for a big favor. If you'd enjoyed my video so far, the best way to let me know is to give me a thumbs up or even subscribe. Each new sub literally makes my day, and it's what keeps me going. Also, consider coming to talk to me on my Discord. It's super fun, and it's an active server, and we'd be glad to have you. Anyway, back to the video. Alright, so for my final character that I actually think has a decent chance, we have the Dragon Blood Prince, Yuden. Now, if you don't know who that is, you're not alone. Yuden is the main character of one of Nintendo's newest IPs, Dragalia Lost. Dragalia Lost flew under the radar for a lot of Nintendo fans due to the fact that it launched exclusively on mobile. The prince uses fire magic, wields a sword, and honestly, besides what I've told you, there isn't too much to know about the character. That said, I think he could be incredibly likely if Nintendo's planning to move forward with Dragalia Lost. I think that adding Yuden to Smash could have a similar effect for Dragalia Lost as it did with Fire Emblem, taking a relatively obscure game and turning it into a household name. And there you have it, that's my list for the most likely DLC options that are first-party characters and not spirits. And if I'm being totally honest, I don't know if I actually think that any of these characters have a chance, but I wanted to start a conversation around the first-party reps in the game. So often this conversation gets shut down immediately because of people crying, "No spirits." But I really feel like not only does that argument potentially not hold water, but it also shuts down a lot of discussion around really cool characters that could come into the game. Anyway, I want to give a big thanks to my patrons, Tim Penrod, Real Lemon, and Lunar Dave. You guys are great, and I could not do these videos without your support, so thank you. And for everyone, until next time, stay smashing.